everybody out there, and welcome to our 18th installment of the Lunch with Eaters series of UCI Alumni virtual events. And a warm welcome to you today on this Friday. This is a monthly virtual lunch and learn program built specifically for the UCI alumni and friends community. So we're glad you found your way to us and have a very exciting program for you today. Before we get into the program, I want to first introduce myself. I'm Jeff Menhas, Executive Director for Alumni Relations at the UCI Alumni Association. And I'll walk you through some event logistics and announcements before we get into the meat of the program. We have an hour today, and the last 15 minutes of the event are going to be reserved for Q&A. So we want to engage you as much as possible. But for now, another resource that I wanted you to know about, we have an incredible online resource called the Anteaters Go Virtual website. It's full of resources for you to feel connected and engage with fellow alumni in the university. We have downloadable content. We have our upcoming events calendar, plenty of recordings of past events. As I said, this is our 18th Lunch with Eaters feature. So lots of content for you to enjoy virtually, no matter where you are in the world. Part of our alumni network of more than 206,000 anteaters, because we're in this together. So for this event, everyone is muted in order to eliminate background noise and interference. Everyone, though, we don't want you to be muted all the way. So feel free to engage, interact, talk amongst each other in the chat box within this Zoom. And then, as I said, we're going to be collecting questions throughout the event in the Q&A box. So please do, early on in the program, middle, late, as we get to that 12:45 marker, submit your questions, then we'll circle back and get to as many of them as we can in the last 15 minutes of the event. All right, so that's it. Now, I would like to introduce our featured speaker, who we're very excited to have join us today, and that is Amy von Kaenel. She is the founder and CEO of Volunteercrowd and mother of 3 boys, 23, 18, and 15. Between her 2 oldest sons' graduating years in 2015 and 2020, she saw the hyper-competitive pursuit of higher education take on a life of its own. As expectations about student performance rose, so did the rate of anxiety, depressions, and deteriorating mental health. While working for a national teen volunteer club from 2015 to 2018, Amy witnessed a parallel universe of ordinary kids making incredible contributions to their communities. In this environment, students were curious, relaxed, and proud of themselves. For their efforts, students received a single reported metric, total hours. One number didn't begin to characterize each student's impact or future potential. That inspired Amy to create the first volunteer portfolio. Amy launched Volunteercrowd in 2019 to provide comprehensive volunteer resources to all students. Amy is a double alumna of UCI with a BA in economics and an MBA from the Palmerage School of Business, and we are very excited to count her as one of our illustrious UCI alumni. Everyone, please join me in giving Amy a virtual great big anteater welcome. Welcome to the stage, Amy.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Theodora. And thank you to everyone who is joining us for lunch today. I'm really honored to be part of the Lunch with Eaters series and to share my journey today. It's been a wonderful one. I actually, my journey with UCI began kind of by accident twice. And what I mean by that is I didn't apply to UCI originally. I wasn't aware of it. And I had only taken tours of UCLA and UCSD. And surprisingly, those are the only UCs I applied to. But one day on the way back from Newport Beach, I got lost coming back from PCH, stumbled onto Jamboree and then University Avenue, drove by UCI. And do you ever have words pop into your head that just, it's like someone is telling you something? The words "I'm home" just appeared because I'm one of these individuals that likes order and structure. And so I had a wonderful first impression of UCI. Made it into UCSD, but I was raised by a single mom and we couldn't afford it. So I moved out to Orange County with a friend and attended OCC, which for me was good, but not quite challenging enough. And I started taking extension courses. So I was taking the normal undergraduate classes and I just fell in love twice. I also fell in love with a boy, which kept me in Irvine, and that's my husband today, also a double alum. And so we are a proud Anteater family.
I love it. I think that your journey is amazing to start hearing about, but not altogether unique in terms of incoming Anteaters finding a home at UCI. And that kind of encourages folks to stay engaged. I also met my spouse at UCI like you. So something in common, although each of us only have one UCI degree. You both have two. So kudos to you. So thank you for sharing that, Amy. We're going to get into your the entrepreneurial side and Volunteercrowd in a minute, but let's stick with UCI for a minute. What are one or two of your favorite memories from your time at UCI after, of course, you joined the community?
Well, I loved statistics, and I had a great mentor with Bob Newcomb. He was in the School of Social Sciences, and I remember we weren't allowed to bring calculators to class because he said, if you don't know what that calculator is doing, then you'll never really understand what statistics is all about. So I really internalized it. I loved his method of teaching. I went on to be a TA with him. I went into some of his graduate school classes and attended and took some of those classes even as an undergraduate. And I formed such a bond with him that he attended my wedding. So that was really wonderful. And then I think the other memories are just the homecoming games. We're basketball fans. My youngest son loves to play basketball. And we were there when Marmaduke was playing. And there's just this video where my son is waiting for Marmaduke to come off the court, and he gives him just this big hug, this little boy and this huge, gentle giant. And it was just the sweetest thing in the world. And so I think it's always been a place for me intellectually, and then also to just feel like you're part of something, you're part of a family.
Yeah, that resonates with a lot of us out there. Bob Newcomb is a bit of a legend among UCI faculty and touched many of us students in a profound way, and that's really great. And he was also he's sorely missed, by the way. And then Mamadou, of course, needs no introduction. So awesome. So you came to UCI. I did read a little bit about this in your introduction about the need you saw for Volunteercrowd, but let's focus on entrepreneurship for a minute. What drew you to become an entrepreneur?
I think my story is very typical of entrepreneurs. You see that something really needs to happen and it's really not happening to your satisfaction. One of our advisors, John Payne, the former CEO of stamps.com, he said it best. He said, only do a startup if you can't not do it. And so that is how I felt. I felt like, oh, it's so frustrating. When I worked for the Teen Volunteer Club, I saw so many wonderful things happening with the students volunteering. And I also saw some areas where students just needed more individualized focus on their volunteer experience. Students should volunteer in groups for that dynamic, and they should also use volunteering as a stepping stone. So I had a background in education technology. I had a background in technology research. And I think as an undergraduate in economics, I just am drawn to efficient marketplaces. So I saw where nonprofits, 1.6 million of them, really needed talented volunteers, and talented students really needed opportunities to shine. So I wanted to create Volunteercrowd where we could meet in the middle. One of the alumni relations representatives, Liz Dahl, she's got a new married name. I think it's Caputi. Maybe you could help me with that, Jeff. Yeah, thank you. Oh gosh, I'm terrible with pronunciations. She and I have been friends for a long time, and she introduced me to the Applied Innovation Center. And that's where I started learning more about it. And once I saw that I had the support and resources to launch Volunteercrowd. I felt a lot more confident about it, because trying to start something in a vacuum is somewhat scary, even if you've got the background. So once I saw that I would have this ecosystem to draw from, I felt better about going into it, a lot more confident.
Yeah, the ecosystem we'll learn a little bit more about, but it is a phenomenal resource here at UCI. Now, you have gone through that and emerged as a great success story. You have a number of accolades now, which your public profile is really impressive. Are there any that you would like to share, or any that you'd like us to share? Some of where this has taken you so far?
I think the one that, and thank you for that. I mean, I feel like our book is still unwritten, and as it always is with a startup, but I'm really pleased to see that, we made it through a rough year. I think what's especially important to me is the Innovation Award for Women of Influence from the Irvine Chamber of Commerce. That is it's very special to me, because as a female founder, entrepreneur, it is very difficult in the startup arena. We receive, in a good year, 2% of all venture funding. And so we really need the support of our community. I was nominated by the head of the Wayfinder program and the UCI Applied Innovation Center, and that really touched me, because there are so many talented entrepreneurs. And just to see that my school and my community is supporting the work that we're doing with Volunteercrowd, and recognizing that the innovation itself is having influence on students. That's what's really special to me, that we are actually helping students get to that next stage in their education or career by giving them meaningful opportunities. So, and I think it also sends a signal that there's a welcome mat at the UCI Applied Innovation Center for female founders, that they wholeheartedly embrace, encourage, and support female entrepreneurs. And so I would encourage any entrepreneur and some of my female founder counterparts and future counterparts to really take a serious look.
Absolutely. And that is very impressive, by the way, Amy, but lots to take advantage of. So why don't we learn a little bit more about it? You mentioned UCI Beal Applied Innovation, and then you also mentioned the Wayfinder program as part of UCI Beal Applied Innovation. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Wayfinder program?
Sure. Lots of accidents in my journey here. I actually started off in the new venture competition and took first place for the social enterprise track. And as part of that journey, they said, you should apply to the Wayfinder program. And it's interesting, because I had received mixed messages. Someone said, well, you're too far along. And everyone's got different opinions. But by the time I applied, I already had an MVP, minimum viable product. And so I had an app and a website and service out in the marketplace. A lot of my counterparts in the Wayfinder program, they started at a much earlier stage, where they were still forming their legal entity. They were still working on logo design, launching a website, reserving those social media channels. But I did apply and I made it in. And I can say wholeheartedly that it is an incredible program, no matter what stage you're in. The UCI Wayfinder program, it's an incubator. And so I was able to stay in and still am in for an extended period of time. And so the needs that I had when I joined in the summer of 2019 are very different. The subject matters are timeless. For example, you're always thinking about accounting. That point in time, I was thinking about accounting for a consumer-based product. Now I'm getting into a SaaS-based enterprise product. And so I have a lot of education in front of me, and I also have the resources at the Wayfinder program, where I can say, look, I need to really understand the tax implications. Can you refer me to someone? And I haven't stumped them yet. Every time I ask for help, it seems like there's a resource there. The same with legal. You're always changing your terms of service. The times are changing. And especially in my sector, where students went online in the tens of millions, that really caused the industry to think about privacy. And so we're expecting a lot more in terms of regulations and privacy with students. And I have those wonderful resources at UCI.
Yeah, lovely. So we're going to learn more about the Wayfinder program momentarily and what makes it unique. But this is a good transition. So everyone in the audience, get back onto your Zoom because we have a question for you. We want to know, is anyone in the audience interested in starting your own startup, being an entrepreneur yourselves? Just a quick yes or no. We'll give you about 10 seconds to vote here in the poll. And it's never too late, especially with the resources that UCI has to offer to our community and alumni. Looks like 71% of you are interested in forming your own startup. So that's great to hear. I think you're in the right place. So Amy, can you tell us a little bit more about the differences between your experience at the Wayfinder program incubator versus a traditional accelerator program that one might find in the community?
Sure. I've heard of a few different accelerators. Going as far back as 2016, I attended a social enterprise accelerator when I worked for the Teen Volunteer Club. They tend to be lockstep and very structured, which is great. And they tend to cover everything you would need to know about a startup, or they'll focus on a vertical such as education, or they'll focus on a specific subject matter like getting funding. And so they tend to have a start date and end date, and lots of great participation. I would encourage individuals who are interested in doing a startup or currently doing a startup to attend multiple accelerators because they all have their different personalities and they all have their offerings. With the Wayfinder program, we do have that structure. We do have regular presentations and the ability to participate. We have the networking that's incredible, but we also have the ability to, as I've done, draw from the different resources and areas of expertise. So it's almost like you can design your own ecosystem with the Wayfinder program, because my needs will be a lot different from a fintech startup or one that's focused on health. And it is wonderful. The Wayfinder program is just one aspect of the UCI Applied Innovation Center. They've got the SBDC there, which has been instrumental during the pandemic in helping startups get grant funding. The SBIR grants, getting a lot of great information and support on that. So I would just say the breadth of the Applied Innovation Center is wonderful, and the Wayfinder program is one aspect of that.
You're right. It's an entire ecosystem, and having not just Wayfinder, but all the other resources you mentioned make it a very unique space. So now let's focus on you and Volunteercrowd. How did this company come to be?
So I had mentioned that my background was in technology research. I worked for Pearson and a number of other ed tech companies and technology companies like HP, CA, IBM. I'd be hard pressed to name one that I didn't do research for. I just fell in love with the space. At that point in time, I had young children in school, and it was just fascinating to me to see the influence of technology in the classroom. After about 12 years, I got antsy to get my hands dirty and actually work with the technology instead of just researching it. So I joined a startup named Thrively, which matched students to extracurricular activities based on almost like a personality assessment. Thrively decided to do to become an assessment company, which didn't interest me as much as a marketplace. They're doing incredibly well now as an assessment company. In the meantime, I was tapped on the shoulder to be a founding board member at Lion's Heart, the Teen Volunteer Club. And when I went in there, I was just blown away at some of the marketing metrics. It was sticky. Students stayed in it a long time. I realized those were signals. They were onto something. Their technology platform, like a lot of nonprofits, it was outdated. And so I recruited some developers, received some technology grants, as a lot of nonprofits can. We relaunched the platform, grew 80%, tripled the national footprint, and then hit a wall because you can't scale a club. You can scale a platform. And to their credit, they knew who they were. They wanted to be a club. And I thought that there was potential to make it I thought there was room in the market for something different that addressed not only the needs of group volunteering, but the individual. I was interested in that student that was interested in coding and wanted to get their hands on a keyboard. Well, nonprofits have keyboards and lots of needs for coders. Or that student that wanted to learn marketing, nonprofits or businesses. So that was really the vision for Volunteercrowd, to match the academic interests of the student and the career aspirations of the student to the nonprofit. And with 1.6 million nonprofits, there's no loss of opportunity.
Thank you for sharing that. I haven't told you this before, but my 12-year-old son is a member of Lion's Heart. He's been volunteering for a couple of years now through the great interface, the platform that you scaled. So now Volunteercrowd, you have now launched a, kind of a high-profile company, and you've had probably a unique experience, I would guess. Maybe you can tell us more about this as a female founder with this company. How has that experience been for you?
Well, I probably came to it with a little bit of an advantage in a few ways. First of all, I'm in a family with serial entrepreneurs, so it was all around me. So when I got into, when I launched Volunteercrowd, I knew it would be a long, hard journey. So I went into it with a fairly thick skin. Launching a startup is hard. Anyone will tell you that. It's very difficult. There are highs and lows. You have more failures than successes, and you really do have to persevere and give yourself a pep talk on multiple occasions. As a female founder, knowing that if there are 100 of you in a room, that, or if there are 100 pitches, that you've got a 2% chance, just statistically, that's a little hard. I mean, you've got to know that going into it. So I think that I've been a very fortunate female founder. That's the best way to put it. And I feel strongly about helping other female founders as well. And I feel strongly about encouraging UCI to keep doing what it's doing, because it's certainly made it a lot easier. For example, my husband, who's had many, many startups, he's never had the level of support that I've had. And so he looks at my experience with a little bit of envy, saying, we didn't have this. We had to just go out and figure it out. So again, a very fortunate female founder.
Absolutely. Well, regardless, you did have resources, and you kind of have the mindset around you, the family of entrepreneurs and whatnot. Still have lots of challenges, right? You said it's always hard starting anything up. Maybe you could touch on what some of those challenges were as a newer startup along the way.
Well, I think one of the quotes that means a lot to me is, on the days where I feel like, oh, this is so hard, my husband said, you can't fail at something that's never been done before. And in a way, we are doing something that's never been done before. You mentioned your experience with Lion's Heart. Everyone knows what a volunteer club is. And so there's assist teams, there's Key Club, there's Lion's Heart, there's NCL. And so we're pulling that experience together. We're like an academic transcript in the sense that we pull together your school volunteering, your club volunteering, your individual volunteering. We have all those clubs I mentioned, we've got members from all of them. And we memorialize and certify all of their experience. So I think that's been one of the more interesting aspects of it, that, we're blazing a trail here.
Yeah, wonderful. So I'm going to take a little pause just to remind folks in the audience to submit questions, again, in the Q&A box here in Zoom, and we'll come back to those and get your questions, because I'm sure you all have different inquiries about your own entrepreneurial ambitions. Okay, so maybe Amy, you can talk where you are now, the momentum you have and what to look for going forward in this venture and anything else that you may have.
Okay, and I did bring a few things to share. Maybe it might be helpful to show just the journey and where we're going next.
Sure, we'll pull those up right now.
Sure.
Just a moment.
And I know I've spoken a lot about the journey, and so I just wanted to share a little timeline to give individuals a sense. I think we've got to back up two more. Oh, there we go. Okay, well, first of all, so you have a visual. We take the volunteer experience and we pull it all together. Today, a lot of students will Google their volunteer opportunities or go on a directory that will show you the opportunity, but then you have to fend for yourself. So we have one platform where you can find your volunteer opportunities, track them, have them verified. And when we verify your volunteer hours, we also collect strength and skill endorsements, which is going to be very critical going into the 2021 college admissions cycle, where college admissions offices are looking for non-cognitive strengths. And then we automatically qualify students for the President's Volunteer Service Award. A lot of students really don't know about that. And then I'll show you the portfolio and how we put that together next.
Okay, so.
Next slide.
Next slide.
So it's a little bit hard to see, and I'm happy to send this out afterward, but today, volunteer data is self-reported. All of the volunteering that your son is doing, for example, someday he might just self-report that on a college application. Well, we put that all together on a verified transcript. His club volunteering, maybe he's in a sport and volunteers, maybe he's volunteering as part of his school program. And so the end audience here is the college admissions office, or perhaps even a future employer, somebody who's evaluating the student for a scholarship opportunity or a paid internship opportunity. So rather than just having one number like a GPA or a test score, we characterize the student's involvement. Yes, we've got a few metrics on there for convenience for the student. For example, when they are looking at filling out the Common App, things like how many years did you volunteer and how many hours on average per week. Those are numbers that nobody really tracks. So for convenience, we put those on there. But I think some of the most important aspects of this transcript are the strength and skill endorsements. These are endorsements from the nonprofits the student serves. And so it really is showing an objective view of that student's character strengths. And it's also showing the student's investment over time in developing their character. I mean, we coach students all the time to make an investment in learning from an academic standpoint. And so this shows the other side of that. Next slide. So just to give you a quick recap of what our journey was like, so you have a sense, we joined Octane's Technology Innovation Forum, and we were a semi-finalist around the same time we did the new venture competition. So we started off pretty strong, went into the Wayfinder program, which was great because we were able to carry that momentum forward and take everything we had learned and continue to build on that. We launched our MVP. We weren't even monetizing. And then about a month before I launched was the college admissions scandal. So that really shaped our narrative and drove home the urgency for a volunteer platform. Right a few weeks before everything closed down because of the pandemic, we started monetizing, which I don't recommend, but that was where we were at. I think because we had so much support, we were able to really slow down and really fortify our platform and do very targeted marketing. For example, virtual volunteer solutions. And then in the backdrop of that, 72% of colleges and universities went test optional in the fall of 2020. So we really became a lot more relevant, and we inserted ourselves into the conversation, for example, with Character Collaborative and Harvard's Making Caring Common, and really focusing on helping the industry to evolve how to evaluate and assess character strengths. And we continue to see those signals, such as the UCs dropping standardized tests as well, the College Board dropping subject matter tests. So next slide. And so here, this has been all of the things that we've been able to take advantage of at the Wayfinder program. And it is what you make of it. So I see a lot of my counterparts making great use of the resources. I have a group of innovation advisors that I work with, and I turn to whenever opportunity knocks or I get stuck. And what's nice is that they've been in your situation, so you can say, hey, I'm really stuck, or I tried something and it's just not working. Can you bring in a fresh perspective? And then I had mentioned the SBIR and STTR application. One thing that's been really wonderful for me is the UCI Law School. The second year students do their capstone projects. And so we've been able to get pro bono consulting, and it's been wonderful to shape some of our policies in terms of service and privacy policies. And then the workshops, I'll drop in, even if I've attended it before, because I'll hear something different. And then I'm most proud of recent development. Volunteercrowd was awarded the Richard Sudak Entrepreneurship Fund, and that is funding a new feature that we're introducing in Q2. We also engaged in the I-Corps customer discovery interview, and that helped shape our product offering. So we were able to monetize in a way that wasn't on our roadmap originally, and that's been very successful. So I recommend that if you're interested, that you try all of these different avenues. Okay, and last slide. So about that grant, this is a list of what colleges will be looking for in the 2021 admissions cycle and beyond. And where you see the check marks, that's what Volunteercrowd is able to offer. So we're really excited about this. We're excited about the funding and support that we've received from UCI. And so this month we're launching in partnership with Parchment. And in case you're not familiar with Parchment, they're the organization that gets all of the academic transcripts and the standardized test scores from high schools to colleges. But we're launching letters of recommendation. We already have the character-related evidence in the transcript and the digital portfolio, and we're also launching digital badges. So students will be able to put their volunteer transcript on LinkedIn just like a credential. So just like you received a Salesforce credential or a Google Cloud Services credential, in other words, a technical skill, you'll also be able to put your Volunteercrowd transcript there. So we're very excited about that. And that's all the news I've got right now. But like I said, Jeff, our book is still unwritten, so check back with me.
Yeah, wow. So that really puts it in perspective. I've been taking some notes on some key points that you've said. But I'm struck by just how appropriate your company is, your product is for the marketplace. Talking about starting this and then the college admission scandal hitting, and then the standardized testing being dropped and subject matter tests being dropped by the College Board. Volunteercrowd covering 4 out of 7 holistic admissions considerations. My kids are younger than yours and all have college ahead, so I'm definitely going to get their profiles up and running. This is amazing. So one more question before we open it up a little bit wider. Just, are there any other takeaways for the audience that you wanted to convey? I know you gave us a pretty robust perspective, but maybe about being an entrepreneur, their ups and downs. Anything else you want to convey?
Surround yourself with other entrepreneurs because they'll understand. They've been in your situation, and they will give you the encouragement. They'll also be honest with you, and they'll tell you, hey, this just isn't going to work. And you need to hear that sometimes too, so that you don't waste your time. Fail early, fail often. I can't emphasize the early enough. But you need an ecosystem. You need to be around other people who are struggling and who are asking the same questions and who have made mistakes that you have yet to make and may be able to save you some time, who've had successes that you can draw upon, and just also future partners, future strategic partners, future business partners, future team members, because you'll notice that there's a gravitational pull at the Dahl Applied Innovation Center, and that you will find some of your future teammates there and the individuals who will help shape the future of your company.
Yeah, so the individuals at the Dahl Applied Innovation, they're experts in residence. There are all, that slide you had with all the listing of resources that you benefited from, many of which are at Dahl Applied Innovation. Very impressive, and you're right. Your husband is right. The resources available to you and to us all, actually, as UCI alumni, as we get the word out, there's so many tools to help, improve your chances of being a successful entrepreneur. So thank you for sharing that. What an amazing story. Okay, so at this point, we're able to take questions from the audience, and I know we just learned quite a bit. So if you do have any questions, put them in the Q&A. I've got one here from Margaret Hammer, and she wants to know a little bit more about Volunteercrowd. Is there a fee for students to use Volunteercrowd?
There is a fee. So we have free offerings. We have free services. So our promise as a social enterprise to schools is that any student who needs 10 hours worth of volunteer time, and that's really the extent of their investment, that they can find fun and easy, low barrier projects on Volunteercrowd. And so we put those volunteer projects up as part of our free program. For our premium programs, we have the Impact Member Program, and that's for the student that really wants to have kind of a college resume defining volunteer opportunity. Volunteer opportunities are really selective in some cases. What do I mean by that? You've probably got tens of thousands of students who want to go into the healthcare arena. We only have so many hospitals here in Orange County. They only have so many internships. So there's a lot of competition for those volunteer internships because those look really good on a college application. So we really source a lot of those opportunities. Some are exclusive to us because we're very well known now among some of these nonprofits. And so they'll come to us and they'll say, hey, we need some students who are very skilled in STEM opportunities. So that is part of our premium program, Impact Membership, Premium Opportunities, the Leadership Program, and also the tracking capability. It doesn't come with verification. Our College and Career Advantage Plan, that one is, oh, by the way, the Impact Member Program is $39 a year. The College and Career Advantage Plan is $99 a year. That comes with the verification services. So we can, as a third party, objectively say, yes, that student did verify. And it's important because we're seeing trends in the volunteer industry where that seems to be the next competitive wave, where people are trying to get a lot of hours. And so we're coaching students that you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on the ball, which is the experience. So if we can verify the hours, we can ask for strength and skill recommendations, we can certify you for awards, and we can build your transcript. You also have a really good foundation then to ask for a letter of recommendation. You can put that credential in the future on LinkedIn. So the verification services just really fortify your college application. And that's $99 a year.
Right, okay. So a follow-up on that, when do you at what age do you recommend, or are you seeing students start their, I guess, path forward on Volunteercrowd? Does it benefit to start at a certain younger age, perhaps than high school? I don't know.
Well, we see students starting in middle school, but we don't put an age restriction. In fact, we just broadened it. And now we have an offering for employees who want to volunteer and build a service transcript. So we'll take someone in kindergarten. And why kindergarten? Because you can start earning the President's Volunteer Service Award at age 5. Not a lot of people know that. But what we recommend is start early, because what you want is you want for that student to kind of self-identify what they're interested in. For example, Jeff, any observations about what your son is interested in when it comes to volunteering? Have you seen him like really take to something?
Yeah, there have been a few he's done where they're basically assembling meals. The project, like the last project, was actually at a local church that we're not affiliated with, but it was definitely a volunteer project, and he liked doing that. And some other kids from his Lions Heart group were there. So he's done a couple like that, which he's liked.
So that tells you a lot. It tells you he likes to work out in the public. He likes to work with other individuals. He may even like to work with his hands. Having 3 sons who have volunteered, one really loved working around elderly patients. He's in the healthcare track. He's applying to PA school. Another one loved children and animals and was really good about working with students with special needs. His first job was at a retail store, Zoomies, where he encounters a lot of kids and he's got a good rapport with them and the parents. And then my youngest loves to work outdoors. He wants to be a marine biologist. He wants to get his hands dirty, literally. So that's why in the beginning, you should start them and you should keep it open to any opportunity. By the time they get to sophomore, junior, senior year, you'll see it go like that, as it should, because students are getting a sense of what they like. That curiosity develops into a sense of purpose. That purpose develops into a sense of passion. And that's where you really see them run with it. They might become a paid employee of that volunteer organization. You never know where it will take them.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing. But we have another question. But before we get to that, I had another follow-up. You briefly mentioned the applicability of Volunteercrowd for employees. And that got me thinking about post graduation. So, people who like to continue volunteering for whatever reason throughout their life. Do you have a market for them as well?
Yes, we do. So right now we offer Volunteercrowd as a voluntary employee benefit. And because you mentioned post-graduation, we're working with a number of medical schools now for students who are having a hard time getting healthcare volunteer opportunities during the pandemic, which, by the way, it's opening up. But yes, a lot of employees will be thinking about that next opportunity. Let's say you've got an individual contributor who wants a managerial role. Well, they can take on a role as a leader in leading some initiatives with a nonprofit and leading a team. And then they can get that endorsement, the letter of recommendation, take that to their employer and say, look, I've proven myself here. And so that's how we see employees not only utilizing volunteering to become part of the community and feel like something bigger than themselves, which is very gratifying, but also to learn things that they don't necessarily have access to through their 9-to-5 job.
Great. Well, that's wonderful for all ages, for everyone. So another question from Margaret for you, Amy. Do the organizations that benefit from the volunteers pay Volunteercrowd for those kind of referrals for projects?
No, not at this point in time, because, well, first of all, we wanted to focus on the services for the students and really try to develop some of those. So we haven't developed as many for the nonprofits, but we do work collaboratively with some of the nonprofits. So the ways that we do that is that we have a program called Volunteercrowd Together, and it's like Amazon Smile, where the nonprofit, if they refer students, because they have volunteers all the time, and we have nonprofits asking, can you track my students' hours? And it's yes, and you can get a donation when you refer a student to one of our programs. In the future, if we see a market for and needs for nonprofits, we may open that up. But at this point in time, we are just really focused on trying to get them the right resources and students who are genuinely interested in their cause, in their mission, and who can bring that talent set. And a side note on that, one of the byproducts of the pandemic, I think it's more of a silver lining, is that Generation Z really had an opportunity to shine. A lot of nonprofits didn't have the digital skill set in-house, and by bringing, and with everything going virtual, a lot of our students brought their digital skills into nonprofits. They got them set up on Zoom. They really blew out their social media, and they were able to really bring in some great creativity and technical skills. So right now we're just focused on getting talent to some of those nonprofits.
Wonderful. So now another question back to the volunteer side, or the client side, if you will. In today's day and age, with all these things having changed in college admissions, and we know this from UC Irvine, we've had a really clean process. We weren't part of the admission scandal, but applications are up even through the pandemic. We had an all-time high number of applications to attend UCI this past year. We are just 2 years ago, we were the number 2 most applied to university or college in the nation to come to UCI. So we're a world-class destination, but with the increased competition of admissions rates and whatnot, have you, I don't know if you know this empirically or if you have a sense for how things are going, Volunteercrowd makes it easy to compile all of this information, letters of recommendation, volunteer hours. But do you know if that's going to be viewed more importantly, weighed more heavily in the college admissions process, meaning that your role with Volunteercrowd is going to be a more powerful tool to get into college for all of these students who are trying to carve out their path in an increasingly competitive marketplace?
Yes, so we are plugged into Character Collaborative and Harvard's Making Caring Common. And over the summer, they're offering courses to admissions offices at different colleges that are embracing holistic admissions, where cognitive and non-cognitive strengths, so academic and non-academic strengths, are really looked at from a balanced viewpoint in the admissions process. So yes, we do become more relevant as we're able to offer some structured information about that student and really characterize, that's a word I'm probably going to overuse, rather than quantify and provide a metric for the student, we're trying to characterize their contribution. Because the one thing I can guarantee is that no 2 student transcripts will ever be the same. And that's the point, is that colleges don't want to know how students are the same. They want to know how students are different. And so we are taking that training alongside of these admissions offices. We're working with them, and that's how we'll put our grant to use in some of the customer discovery interviews and make sure that the prompts and the structure of that letter of recommendation help to support the information that the college admissions offices need. So yes, to answer your question.
Wonderful. I love how you approach that, characterizing the students rather than quantifying them. Thank you. So we have another question here from Dennis Kaus. Where should high school students go to learn more about the programs to help get prepared for college applications? Do you have any resources that we could point to on that front?
We do, and we have a number of partners. And so I'm going to speak now as a mother because I've seen a lot of the great programs out there. One of the programs that I would put my son in because of who my son is and how he responds to people is we've worked with college vision of Next College Student Athlete, and they have recent graduates who advise students, so they've been through the process, so there's a great deal of empathy and advice that comes from the heart and comes from experience. There are a lot of wonderful college advisors out there. It's just for my son, because I know he would respond to someone who's more of a peer, that's where I would go. But a good college consultant or advisor or school counselor will help you put volunteering in the context of the overall college readiness path. So we're a part of that, but we rely on the rest of the industry to really help the student shape that narrative and shape their profile for the colleges.
Absolutely. Okay. So we have another great question about Volunteercrowd and what the platform does. Carrie Wrights asks, how do you evaluate the outcomes of volunteer positions or work that has been done? Or is that a part of the Volunteercrowd service?
So we're here to facilitate the evaluation of that outcome, and it's a great question. So our job is really to collect all of that rich information about the student's contribution from the individuals who are there observing it, and to memorialize that as a permanent record for that student. We're not the consumers of that data. If you think about it, the future stakeholders are a college admissions office, whether it's graduate or undergraduate, a scholarship organization, even an employer. In the case of my middle son, when he's applying for a job, turning over that transcript and saying, here's what I've done. I didn't get paid for it, but here's a lot of my really good experience. So our job is to really work with those stakeholders and make sure that we are presenting that information in a way that they can digest very quickly. You probably noticed our volunteer transcript is very graphical. It's not metric heavy. And that's because I'm rusty on this number, but I think I was told at one point in time, a college admissions reviewer has 12 minutes to evaluate an application. So like that. So we made it so you can digest our transcript and get a strong takeaway within about 30 to 45 seconds.
Yeah, that's very important to make that impression when college admissions offices are reviewing more than 100,000 applications. So it does boil down to time. Very good. So kind of a tangent to that, if you're a volunteer organization or a nonprofit or a company and you have volunteer opportunities, is there a place perhaps on the Volunteercrowd website where they can register opportunities? And I don't know if you answered this before, I might have missed it, but is there a cost for that?
So for the nonprofits, it is free. You would just go to Volunteercrowd. If you look at our footer, it says find volunteers. You select that link and we ask you information about your opportunity. We review it. We've got students on our platform. And so we do have some guidelines. For example, we don't post things when it's just about fundraising. We want the students to give their time and their talent. Fundraising, there are other platforms that are better at that than we are. And so, yes, so we work with nonprofits in a variety of ways. And that's what's really nice, that we have some return nonprofits because our students are doing a great job.
Wonderful. Okay, Amy, well, that takes us to the end of the hour. Unbelievably, this was a joy to learn more about both, of course, Volunteercrowd and this amazing company you've built, but also your process as an entrepreneur and your pathway. I want to leave folks with some absolute gems that you dropped on us in terms of advice and quotes. So a few things here. Only be an entrepreneur if you can't not do it. You can't fail at something that has never been done before. Surround yourself with other entrepreneurs and find your ecosystem. Fail early, fail often, and of course, try to make those failures early, I suppose. Lots of great advice that you gave us and the attendees today, Amy. So with that, I'm going to say thank you so much for lending us your time and expertise. It's been a joy to chat with you today.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Theodora, I really appreciate the opportunity to come here and mix and mingle with other anteaters.
Yeah, and we're very proud of you as a successful model UCI alumna. So everyone in the audience, please join me in a virtual thanks for Amy. And thank you all for joining as well. Amy, we look forward to seeing you. Of course, you're a big part of the UCI Beal Applied Innovation ecosystem. And in the news, as you mentioned, Orange County, or excuse me, Greater Irvine Chamber Women of Influence Award winner, just 2 weeks ago, I think it was announced. So congratulations once again for that. And thank you, Amy.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Right, so everyone, we do have a final poll question. We just want to get a little feedback about this event for future events. As I said at the top of the hour, this is the 17th Lunch with Eaters event, and we're interested to know what else you want to learn about. We have very successful alumni like Amy in every field you can think of. So let us know what might be interesting to you, and we will try to address those in future virtual programs. Between all of the alumni programs, we're doing about 4 on average a week. And we have a huge library of recordings now since we've been doing virtual programs. So thank you for your feedback. Thank you again for joining us today. Our next Lunch with Eaters event is going to be The Art of Managing Up, featuring Geis Lee, and the date is going to be Friday, May 14th, just over a month from now, of course, from 12 to 1. We very much hope you will join us then. If you do have any further questions for us or for Amy, feel free to email us at alumni@uci.edu. We'll do our best to get back to you if you do have follow-up questions. And finally, this webinar was recorded. So if you would like to reference it, or if you'd like to share it, please go back to our UCI Alumni Association website and feel free to do so. It's one of many, many resources we have for you as our engaged alumni community. Thank you everyone for attending, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great weekend.